And I'm going to
Come stay here. Where are you going?
honor this here. Okay, I've read the terms and conditions. Okay, got it. And join. Okay.
Oh, yeah, because that's actually very distracting.
All right, I'm going to mute that one. All right. Oh my. Okay, I got to turn off the sound here. Okay. Ah, that's good. All right,
Show my name.
and then I can't hear.
Beautiful.
All right. And let's see if anybody shows up. Oh, you know, I'm hearing the echo. Okay, speaking to the group, your microphone is muted. Unmute now. Okay. All right. You're right. Okay. And just.
Is that me?
Okay. Turn off. Oh, wait a minute. Wrong one. Okay. Turn off this one. Turn off that one. Okay. That's better.
Tracey would see it as erratically. Okay. You know what? I think we have to change our voice message on the phone because I think it's closer to Luna.
Okay. And we're waiting for people to show up.
Well, and at some point, I think, Tracey, we just do it. We just do it. We go on and start talking to each other.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. What I'm going to do is I'm actually, oh, way to see a chat. What's this? Erica, what are the legal issues about being a guardian? Do I have to worry about being sued if I become a guardian for my mother? Oh, that's great. Okay, awesome.
We just want to start putting some stuff up.
Sure.
Somebody joins us.
Yeah. They can see the
They're late to the party.
Yeah. Great. Okay, and I'm going to go to my control room here. And okay, let's join, hide their audio and video from the broadcast. Broadcast large video that I see to the audience and hide the other video feeds. Yes. Okay. All right. So that's when okay, so there I can see. Yeah, all right. No. So I want to see. Yeah, okay.
Think of another question we can ask.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. All right. Well, hi there, and welcome to the first ever Grand Family Planning Hangout. I'm Tracey Lawrence. I'm the founder of Grand Family Planning, and today I have Kimberly Paton with me, and we are going to talk about a very important subject for adult children of aging parents who may have concerns about whether or not they are legally responsible for what their parents do when their parents begin to decline and may act out or do things that are a little unexpected in polite society. So we thought we would open this up and allow people to come spend some time with us and find out what Grand Family Planning is all about, and talk about issues that that really affect so many people. So I'm going to get the ball rolling with. Okay. with a slide presentation, and this is just gonna talk. We're gonna talk. This is today's topic: legally or morally, are you responsible for your parents? And first, I'm going to tell you my why. Why am I doing this? Why am I so passionate about letting people know why these topics are important? Well, these are my folks. This is Herb and this is Roz. Back in 1983, they were about my age, and they were having a wonderful retirement. They
Tracey,
had a yes.
Tracey, I need to interrupt you because I'm not sure if it's my computer but I'm not seeing the photos.
Oh, okay.
Grand family planning.
Okay, sharing screen. Okay. No. Okay. All right. I am seeing it on the other computer, so I think
it must be me.
Oh, you know what? When you speak, I see you. It automatically shifts to you. Yeah.
Then I'll smile.
Okay. So all right. So these are my folks, and this is when they were my age. And fast forward 20 years, and a lot happens. And the reason that it's important to understand this is that time gets away from us. None of us likes to think that we're ever going to get old, but on a long enough timeline, we invariably do. This was me with my mom back in 2002 when they were living down in Florida. Then in 2009, Mom came up to live with us because she had some health concerns and she needed help, and and I helped her. So in the intervening time, she was back and forth between my home in Florida, my home in northern New Jersey, and her home in Florida, and eventually she could no longer live on her own, even with hired caregivers to help her. And she currently resides in a group home in northern New Jersey, and she's on hospice. And I know what it takes for adult children to be able to advocate for their aging parents, and there's a lot that needs to be done. So my passion in life is to educate people about the need to address these topics sooner than later, because the more preparation you do, the better it's going to be for you. You don't want to be reacting to your parents' situation when you're in emergency mode, because that is a recipe for disaster. When you're acting in crisis, that's when you make a lot of really bad decisions, and that's when you can risk losing all of your familial assets. So what we at Grand Family Planning are trying to do is to help families understand what kinds of things they need to do in order to ensure their health and well-being, and then provide them with a means to actually address those needs. So here's the background. Every day in the United States right now, 10,000 people are turning 65. Okay, this is the wind-up of the baby boom. And today's families consist of parents, children, and grandparents. You've got kids who go off to school and try to find jobs and maybe can or can't, wind up staying in the family home longer or boomeranging. And as the adult, the grandparents get older, a lot of times the adult children wind up either bringing the parents back in to live with them, or they're spending more time helping their parents to cope with their lives, because as our parents get older, it gets harder for them to manage on their own. And Rod, forgive me, my voice. Of course, my voice is going out because I've been battling a cold for like days. Excuse me. And we all have to realize that change in life is inevitable. and that in order to cope with those changes, adult children must acquire new skills and knowledge.
Tracy?
Yes.
Because it really is such a huge change for the family dynamic, and nobody likes change, I forever recommend that people get into family therapy or get a third party involved who's trained in this, who can help the family navigate between the new changes and the stress that is going to be on everybody.
Yes.
And I know you have a sibling, but I know that also that much of this all fell on you. And I know in my family, my sister takes care of my mother, and we come from 7 children, but it all falls on one child. My theory has always been whoever is actually being the caretaker, they should get the utmost deference in the decision making. But I know many families and even some of my siblings that don't agree with that. But that's where I really always recommend therapy and to have open communications. And, you know, even the caretaker, if they choose to take on the caretaking role and, you know, they get resentful that the other children aren't doing it, but that's part of being given the deference of you get to make the decisions, but then you need to take on the responsibility, and the reverse of that. If you're taking on the responsibility, you get to make the decisions. As I said, that's my firm belief, but I know that many families don't follow that. Many people don't follow that.
That's a great point, Kimberly, and I appreciate you interjecting that, because it's something that a lot of people, you know, should take advantage of but don't, and it's something that just never occurs to them. So that's a really great point. You know, and one of the things that often happens too is that, you know, children have a really tough time putting themselves in their parents' position, because they think of their parents in a particular way as, you know, being you know, the ones who lay down the law, the ones who make the decisions, and all of a sudden they're vulnerable, and they try to address what's going on, and the parents give them pushback. And, you know, you have to really consider that, you know, that first of all, nobody wants to acknowledge cognitive decline. It's frustrating. It's terribly fear-inducing. People fear the loss of their independence. They have fear of death. Most parents don't want to be a burden on their children, and they try desperately hard to disguise when they're beginning to fail. And then, of course, there's resentment. They resent that they're losing their ability to be independent. Denial is extremely powerful, and that's on both sides of the family equation. We find that the children and the parents deny that there's a problem, and that's an even bigger problem, because you can't address a problem if you don't believe that it exists. So that's a really big part of the family dynamic as well. There's a lot of anger. Yes.
I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt your thought, but what I find a lot of, especially the children that do not live locally, so they're not seeing their parents on a day-to-day basis or even a week-to-week basis, they really deny forever. You know, so the child that is local and doing all the caretaking, who is saying we need help, we need to intervene, and then the mother who gets on a phone call to her child that's in California and says, you know, your sister is bothering me, and she just wants my money. She wants me to go into a long-term care facility. So I find it very helpful to have these children that are not local to come and just see their mother or their father. You know, sometimes
Absolutely. Yeah, I actually had that situation with my mother's mother, where my mom's siblings were really combative about it, because, you know, they weren't seeing what was going on with my grandmother, and, you know, they make a lot of assumptions, and they don't really understand how grave the situation is, because it's not in their face, they're not seeing it. So and it's easy to deny when you're not seeing it up close and personal. So
that's right.
It's absolutely a great point. And another thing that people don't understand when they haven't confronted cognitive decline is anxiety. People become extremely anxious, and it brings on a whole host of other psychological problems that need to be addressed, that are just, it's just more stuff that you have to deal with, stuff that you don't really anticipate until you actually see it happening in your own family. Parents do tend to hide or minimize their problems. And one thing that we have to understand is that aging adults are not like children. I've heard people say this, it's like, oh, they're just like little kids. Well, no, they're not, because little kids don't have credit cards. Little kids don't have the means to actually, take action on some of the unreasonable ideas that they have in their heads. And then there are family dynamics that have a huge impact. The roles that children play as they're growing up have a tendency to keep a stranglehold on the family long after those dynamics have a usefulness. And when somebody kind of steps out of line and tries to take a leadership role in the new paradigm, the other siblings have a tendency to say, hey, wait a minute, what are you trying to do? You've always been, you've always played this role. How do you, where do you get off trying to change things? And the changes in our parents are not going to be linear, which is to say, if they have a bad day, they're not necessarily going to have a bad day the next day. They might have a great day the next day and act a lot more like their former selves. So, and then they might have much worse days. So it's very unpredictable, and you're going to find yourself on quicksand a lot of the time.
And Tracey, this is where I always recommend my clients to try to spend some extended time with the parents.
Yes.
Because so many of the parents can hold it together for 30 minutes, and they've got the platitudes and the easy answers. My mother was wonderful for she didn't know who I was. And I would say, Mom, do you remember me? Do you know my name? Yes, you're the pretty one. It sounds great, doesn't it? And then you say, oh, she remembers who I am. But the reality was she didn't know who I was. And in my family, coming from 7 children, I understood it. But my siblings that she did not remember took it tremendously to heart and found it very difficult to even visit for any extended period of time because they were so insulted that she didn't remember them. Right. And this is why education and this is why this chat is so important, because people really need to understand and be educated on it so that they don't react emotionally in this respect or fall back to their those childhood feelings and interactions of, oh, she was always the favorite child. Oh, of course, Mom remembers her because she's the favorite child.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with that. It's just the way the disease takes hold.
Exactly. And people, children have a tendency to react as if, their parent is the way they always were. And right. they make it about, like the old rules, the way things used to be, and not realizing that the disease creates a whole new set of rules. And it's heartbreaking, and it's really difficult to deal with if you don't know what you're up against. And the other thing that the last point on this list that I think is really important that people really have to be mindful of is that when you're an adult child and you approach your parents and they give you pushback, you have a tendency to back down out of lifelong habit.
Right. That's right.
And it's important to realize that, when your parents are on the decline and it's your turn to step up, you have to maintain your resolve, particularly because you are going to have those days when they are having good days and they are feeling more like themselves, and they're going to start acting more like they used to, and then you're going to be more inclined to act the way you used to. So, you have to realize that when things are starting to go south and you need to step up, you have to maintain your resolve and realize that you are doing the right thing by trying to do what's best for your parents.
And one of the things, Tracey, that I encounter a lot in my practice, and I know we'll talk about this later, having proper documents, mm-hmm. but because our mothers took care of their mothers, and the world was such a different place. When I'm recommending to the older person who might be declining that they need their documents, and they will hold steadfast to, no, I don't need this. I took care of my mother without having a power of attorney.
Right.
And it's very hard for them to understand in that state that our world has changed. You really need the proper documentation, and that's where that pushback can really come in and be very difficult, because while they have that ability to kind of fight back and form and remember that they took care of their mother without it, is when the children kind of back down, and they wait until it gets beyond the ability for the mother to sign a power of attorney, and now we're faced with much bigger legal actions that everybody should just want to avoid.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Kimberly. It's on the money. So let's look at some of the stuff that happens that might be concerning, where you might have an oh no moment, where you start realizing that you might be on the hook for some of the things that your parents might do. What kinds of things do happen? Phone and internet scams are a really big problem. There are a lot of unscrupulous firms out there who go after aging people either by phone or through internet scams and try to bilk them out of their money. Why is that important to the children? Well, if your parents have their identity stolen or have great sums of money taken away from them by criminals, their ability to care for themselves and your ability to help care for them gets undercut in a very profound way. So so it's important to be mindful of that, and there are steps that you can take to help intervene and keep them out of trouble with those kinds of those kinds of threats. There's also inappropriate behavior. Sometimes as people start to decline, and I just noticed inappropriate's misspelled. Oh well. That they may act in inappropriate ways with other people who might get offended, not realizing that that the parent has an issue. So there are times that that they can get into trouble, and if they say something that's hurtful or threatening, that could reflect on you as their caregiver if you are their caregiver. Forgetting to pay bills. All right, that's certainly an issue. They can run afoul of different creditors, and they may need your help in remembering to take care of their financial responsibilities. They may forget to take their medications, and that's a big one. A lot of times, as people age and they have a lot of medications, it's difficult for them to manage the medications, and they may either forget or double dose. So that's another thing that we have to be mindful of. They may forget to.
Can I interrupt you for a moment?
Sure.
Because 2 points on those. Because what I find with my clients is one of the first and easiest signs to see that the parents are slipping, because I think the parents can cover up so much very easily. Are the bill paying? The bills are all stacked up in the corner of the desk waiting to get paid, or in a drawer somewhere, right. And the parents mean to get to it. They just haven't gotten to it. Right. But when you start seeing that mail is building up, that's an easy sign to know that something needs to be done. And one of the things that I like to recommend is to make the child, whichever child is going to be responsible for this, to be a third-party notice on those bills. Yes. So before the homeowner's insurance or the car insurance is canceled or lapses, the child is notified and has the ability to solve it before the lapse occurs. Right. And that can happen. The homeowner's insurance lapses, there's a fire, and it's not covered. The medication, there are these blister packs. You know, you buy them on the over-the-counter where you can press out the medication for Sudafed or something. You can actually create those in addition to the standard pill boxes that they have. But this is to avoid the overtaking or undertaking of medication, because it'll have a whole month's worth of medicine that you can line up, and it's a blister pack.
Mm-hmm.
Now, could your parents still take Thursday and Friday medication? Absolutely. But at least you would be able to see it and know it. Because what my mother did for a very long time was to say, oh, no, she took her medicine. She just took it directly out of the pill box instead of out of the weekly pill boxes.
Right.
So it's just another way of setting up the medication as you're heading toward, because, there's so many different stages. You know this, Tracy. There's so many different stages where maybe they just need a little help, our parents. Maybe they need a little more. And that's the difficulty, is when do you get to the next plateau where you can't really trust your mom to take her medication by herself.
Right. Yeah, I'd actually at one point I had a pill dispenser that I purchased that it was where you could load up all the pills for up to 4 times a day.
Oh wow!
I actually still have it. And it will beep to notify the person that it's time to take it, and the little door opens, and all you have to do is turn the device over in your hand. The problem with my mom was that she had gotten to the point where she couldn't even figure out how to pick the thing up and turn it over in her hand. So, there are some really great technologies out there, but, in time, our parents get to a certain stage, and even the simplest things are beyond them, and that's when, there's, more profound interventions have to be taken, which is sad, but, that's the kind of thing you got to be on the lookout for. And just every time you think you found a solution, their condition will change. So
it changes. You get yourself in the rut, you've got a nice plan, and then everything changes and you have to start over almost.
Exactly. As soon as I had my mom in a great assisted living facility that she really loved, where she loved the food and everything was great, she had a UTI, she became profoundly psychotic, and I had to start all over again. So,
I marvel at the fact that the UTI can really, really wreak havoc on a person, number one. And number two, I marvel at the fact that the doctors of geriatric patients don't know that. I mean, I don't understand. If somebody starts behaving bizarrely, they start running through a whole series of other tests before they do the UTI.
Yeah.
Test for a UTI, and I tell all of my clients, if something just doesn't seem right, and especially when it comes on very quickly,
mm-hmm.
ask for a test for a UTI, urinary tract infection, because it does wreak havoc on everything, on the physically, on emotionally. And I will tell you candidly, my mom had one once. Now my sister takes care of my mother. I got this horrible phone call in the middle of the night. My sister doesn't know what to do. My mom is just not responding. So I get to her house, we get to the hospital. 6 hours later of different testing, they finally tested for the UTI. And it was a UTI. So as much as I know this, and I counsel people to always ask for it, I forgot when it was my mother. With my mother, I was an emotional wreck. I just handed her off to the doctors. I was not advocating for her. We didn't know what to do, and it's just kind of that terror of seeing your mother in that condition that everything else kind of shut down on me.
Oh yeah, I had one instance where I visited my mom at her home, and she had just come back from the hospital for treatment for a UTI. And while I was sitting with her, I was listening to some of the things that she was saying, and she was getting really hostile. And it didn't occur to me till I was in the car on the way home that she probably was having another UTI. And when I got home, I called the nurse manager and I said, do me a favor, test her. And she called the doctor, and the doctor said, "Don't even test her, just put her on antibiotics." It was just like, it was automatic, you know. It's like, yeah, you know, as soon as she would get nasty, it was like, that was the sign. She's got a UTI. Let's put her on antibiotics.
And they do have test strips in the, you know, the drugstores, CVS. I've seen them. So
Yep.
even at home, you can do it.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, once you become aware of it, and I hate to be, I don't want to be gross or anything, but you can actually tell from the smell. You know, once you become astute and you know what's going on, you can tell, and I could tell. But you know, to your point, that you know, you have a tendency when it's your parent, you know, even though you know it intellectually, you know, you sometimes you panic and you forget something like really simple like that. So, and the people that you work with, your team has to really, you know, have your back when it comes to that kind of stuff. That's why my mom is in the home that she's in right now, because those guys, they're my team who know, they know what my mom's things are. They know her, they know her conditions, and they're able to react very quickly to the issues as they come up. So. Yeah, so UTIs they really become part of your vocabulary when you have an elderly parent, unfortunately. Okay, and so another thing that I recently was talking to somebody who was telling me how their parents have parties, which is, it's kind of cute, you know, but it's not so cute when they get the neighbors honked off, and they're, you know, they might be like mixing alcohol with their medications and things of that nature.
Oh boy.
Excuse me. So you know, and you know, what if somebody calls the cops? You know, that's something you got to worry about also. You know, I had some instances with my mom where she was thrown out of rehab for violence. She pulled butter knives on the staff at the rehab facility that she was at, and they called the cops, and they had her taken to the emergency room because they didn't want to deal with her.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and that's another thing.
Very seriously, you know, it's always they take it as dangerous to sell for others, and you know, being the child, and you're saying, come on, you can't really expect that this older woman who has limited physical abilities is really a threat. But they don't mess around with that. That's at zero tolerance, because yes, she can be a threat. Absolutely,
and not just to other people, but to herself. And the funny thing was that when I got to the emergency room, you know, my mom was laughing about it because she knew it was ridiculous. She knew they were butter knives. She knew that she couldn't really hurt anybody with it. But by the same token, she's always been a very demure person, and she was kind of proud of herself that she was actually, you know, she defended herself when she felt threatened. So, but that was where she was at that point. And here's a big one. This is probably one of the biggest ones, and a lot of people have this: driving when it's no longer safe. That's a huge one. Well, I think we should probably get into that, and then you know, right after talking about falls, because falls are another thing that happens a lot. We don't, you know, you don't realize it, but as our parents, you know, their condition gets, you know, they become debilitated, opportunities for them to fall down and hurt themselves and do very serious harm to themselves are constant. So, you know, we really have to like look into ways to protect them from falling down, because that just will send an otherwise fairly healthy parent into a spiral that will, you know, put them in a very perilous situation. So, okay. So, driving a car. This is such a big thing, and adult children have a huge problem with this, because you don't want to take that last vestige of independence away from your parents. You don't, you know, it's very hard to tell somebody who's been driving safely for 60 years that it's time for them to stop. And you don't want to be the bad guy. You don't want to be the one who actually says to them, look, Mom, Dad, it's time. You gotta stop. You're going to hurt somebody. You're going to hurt yourself. And while it's, it's easy to want to say, all right, they're okay, they're just a little forgetful. You make a lot of excuses for them, but consider if you are seeing something that's giving you pause, and you don't do something to prevent them from getting behind the wheel. If God forbid they hurt themselves or they hurt somebody else, how are you going to feel? You may not have legal responsibility for your parents, but you have a moral obligation to protect them and anybody else who's on the road from the possibility that they are going to create an accident because they are no longer able to think clearly, they are no longer able to react to a situation, they don't have the reflexes that they once had. So this is something that is just so important. Would you agree, Kimberly?
I absolutely do. So, and you're absolutely correct. From a legal point of view, a child doesn't have responsibility toward the parents or their actions. Of course, that's assuming they're not driving the child's car, because if you let your parent drive your car, you're on the hook for whatever damage that they might incur. But legally, you don't. We even have statutes in New Jersey that protect so that there is no liability. But from a moral perspective is exactly, how do you feel? How does, it's one thing, God forbid, they hurt themselves, but what happens if they cause an accident that causes somebody else severe bodily injury or death? And there's an entire family that is destroyed because of your parents' actions, and not because they did anything willfully wrong, just because exactly that. Their reflexes are not as good, their eyesight is not as good. I find myself, when I'm driving, realizing that my eyesight is just not as good at nighttime. But because I'm still very alert about it, I take the extra precautions of recognizing that I need some extra time to stop. I even notice my reflexes aren't as good as they used to be. And with all the new technology in the cars, I can become distracted while driving. So this all takes a lot of mental energy to keep me focused on the road and driving. So I can't even imagine if somebody were older and not realizing that, to change your radio station might take 15 seconds. And in that 15 seconds, you could travel 100 yards, probably more. I don't even know what it would be. Now, you have to react quickly because you just weren't paying attention the way you should have been. And as we get older, we need more and more attention to this. And our roads here in northern New Jersey, Bergen County, they are just so congested. And it goes to the point of everybody needs a car to be independent. So you don't want to take away your father's driving ability, because otherwise, how would he get to the supermarket? How can he get his hair cut? He needs some independence, but that same situation means that we've got lots and lots of cars on the road, and everybody's rushing around. Everybody's busy, so that split-second bad decision or inability to react quickly can really cause tragedy. And then how do you feel as the child who probably even knew and said, Dad, you shouldn't be driving, but Dad fought back, and we're used to deferring to our parents. How do you feel about that? That would be a very tough thing to have to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. And here's another thing. Well, you might actually take the car away. But I actually heard a story. One fellow told me that he was living in Boston, and his father was in California, and he and his siblings managed to sell his car, get it away from him, but his father still had the means and went and bought a new car. So, right. And that could be really, that it's so. In addition to eliminating the vehicle, there are steps that you need to take to make sure that your parent is not going to go out and replace that car. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so you know, and there are alternatives to help them preserve their independence. You can help them by hiring caregivers who will drive them, as well as, you know, help them with, you know, various different tasks. There are taxis, you know, and, you know, while your parents may be loath to pay the money for taxi fare, it's a lot less expensive than a lawsuit, or, you know, or you know, going out in the car and endangering and imperiling themselves and others. And there's also, you know, the concept of moving to a more appropriate community where they don't have to drive so much. There were a lot of you know, over 55 communities where a lot of the amenities, the places where they need to go and shop, are right, you know, in the complex where they live. They can have stuff delivered. So, you know, there are a lot of options out there, and as the population ages, their businesses are, you know, mindful of it, and they are providing more services that keep seniors from having to get behind the wheel.
I was about to say, I have heard that situation where they take the car away from the parent and the parent goes and buys another car, and it's very difficult. What I have had a couple of my clients do is to notify credit bureaus so that they don't get a car loan, but if the parent can still just buy a car, they don't need to apply for a car loan. You know, or very similarly, where the one sibling is exploiting the parents financially, and maybe not even necessarily in a mean-spirited way, just that the parents want to give them the money, and they've always been used to the parent giving them money or taking out a credit card. So we have notified credit bureaus to avoid extending credit. There's no guarantee on that. You can notify the credit bureau, but they might still get the credit card anyway, or the car loan anyway.
Right.
Which is another way to try to put up a roadblock to somebody financially exploiting your parents or them buying a new car for themselves.
Great point. Thank you. So, here's just some ideas for before you actually go ahead and step in. One thing I would absolutely say is, you know, be prepared. You want to try to get the support of your siblings and other family members, if at all possible. Because the worst thing that you could do is approach your parents and then be blindsided by other family members. So if you're having the conversations with siblings and other family members first, then there's strength in numbers. And you want to have a clear agenda. You know, you want to let your parents know that you are on their side, that you are not there to take anything away from them, but you are doing this out of love, out of respect, out of a wish to be supportive of their wishes and their wants, and to try and help extend their independence as long as possible. And you have to be ready to step away, because you know, if you hound them, they're going to shut down completely. So, you know, but if you approach it in the right way, and you make incremental progress with them, where you kind of start planting some seeds, then it's better than no progress at all. So, you know, the last thing you want is for your parents to feel attacked, to feel, you know, because, you know, their first response is always going to be defensive, and you know, unless they're the ones who bring it up, which does happen in some rare cases, but for the most part, you know, if the child brings it up, their first response is going to be, "We're fine. Leave me alone. Can't we talk about something more pleasant?"
Sure.
And I do suggest that you seek help, because this is a monumental undertaking, and you really, you know, it's very often it's important to have another grown-up in the room when you have these conversations with your parents. And if they give you a lot of pushback and you can't seem to break down the wall, it might be a good idea to seek out a respected party in their lives. If they are involved in the community, some kind of, you know, someone who's respected in the community who they go to for advice. a clergy person, financial advisor, anybody who has a role in their life who they respect. You might want to get them on your team. And if you can't do that, then you might want to look to other professionals who do interventions, people like us, who can help you to overcome those kinds of objections.
And I would chime in to say, and you've got to check your ego at the door a bit, because I tell you, probably 25 years ago, when I was talking to my mother about having her estate planning documents done. Now, remember, this is what I do. I prepare these documents, and I'm telling her how important it was and is to have, and she refused. Until my cousin, who is a personal injury attorney, so he doesn't even know anything about these documents, mentioned it. And then, oh my goodness, wasn't he a genius? And my mother calls me up to tell me how smart Robert is, and I was offended and hurt, and I took the higher road, and I said, and so I jumped on the bandwagon. Yes, he's very smart. Let's get the documents done. So we were able to get them done because she took his counsel so much more to heart than she took my own. I could have been very immature, and I felt very immature in the moment, but decided to forget my ego, just do what's right, get it done. We did get it done. And that's one of the things that I recommend to everybody. Everybody should have an updated power of attorney, an updated living will. So the power of attorney gives the child or children authority to handle the parents' finances, talk to the doctors and medical staff so that they know what's going on. Without a power of attorney, the children may not even know what's going on. They're not seeing the bank statements, and to find out that the parents just gave somebody $10,000 because they called up and they said they needed it, or they're investing money with somebody who's not credible. If you don't have the knowledge, you have no idea how to protect your parents. If you don't have the power of attorney and your parents decline, you can't really even technically sign them into a medical facility or a long-term care facility for their care, or to even hire a caretaker. So, and at that point, now you're looking at having to go to court and get a guardianship, which takes time. So it's probably, like Tracey, you said it before, people are reacting under emergency situations. You want to be prepared for these situations. As much as possible, the older adult should be telling the younger adult what they want and where they would rather live, and be involved as much as possible. Not waiting for an emergency and then basically having to go to whichever facility is willing to take the person, then causing family feuds between the siblings who are reverting back to their childhood. They remember, and believe me, I've had clients that tell me that she was always like this because when she was 7, she insisted on getting the flour on the cake. And that has defined this relationship for their entire lives. These are 60-year-old people that I'm talking about. So I always recommend having the correct documentation. I would always suggest that you see it because you want to make sure that your parents have access to their original documents, the power of attorney, the living will, the will. Because if they don't have an original, it's like they don't have anything. My mother's power of attorney that I got to update 20 years ago named my father as the agent. My father, who had passed away already, and there was no backup agent. So she thought she had a power of attorney, but in reality, she had a document that had no validity to it because there was no backup agent. So you want to make sure that you have a backup agent named. You want to make sure it has all the updated provisions that you need nowadays, referring to HIPAA laws and privacy laws and what the banks like to see, so that it's effective. Because you could have a piece of paper that, and I think it's a mistake that happens where very easily people go to a hospital and they're asked if they have a living will or a power of attorney even. Some hospitals will provide a document, a very basic document. Now people think they have them, and they find out this doesn't apply to anything except for that hospital visit. Or they go to the bank and they name their daughter as a power of attorney on that account. And they think they have a power of attorney, but just a very limited power of attorney. So you always want to make sure you have the right documents, you know where the originals are. Unfortunately, there are people that have had their documents done and the attorney retires, and somewhere, somehow, those documents didn't get into the right hands, so they can't find it. They don't remember the attorney's name. So you want to make sure that you have those documents. And if you have time to plan, that would be the greatest thing, is if you have time to plan, you want to talk about finances. Nobody likes to talk about finances, but you want to talk about it because I can tell you as a practitioner, I can come up with a great plan if you have no money. I can come up with a great plan if you have a lot of money. But I need to know what it is in order to make the proper plan. So I can imagine that the children won't know. Can mom really afford to stay home? And one child is saying yes and one child is saying no because they both have assumptions. But they don't know the real answer.
Right.
And now you've got the two kids fighting. And neither one of them really has any credible insight because they don't know the answer. There are, you mentioned before about technology. So technology is amazing, that you can now have video cams so that if you can't, what we're doing right now, who would have thought that you could do this? If you can't see your mom every day, but if you can have a scheduled time to see her on a computer and a Skype, and you just see different things instead of being on a telephone call. They even have GPS monitors. So if you have a parent that wanders, even in sneakers now, where you can, if they wander and you can't find them, you can locate them through GPS. So I do have on my website a lot of this information, so that if anybody, so we have such limited time here, but if you can go to my website at www.patonlawfirm.com. Paton is 1T, P-A-T-O-N, and there's different tabs there for memos. There's just lots of information that you should know about your parents. Who are their doctors? What are their medications? We should always keep that updated for everybody. Everybody should have that updated, but you need to know that because if there's an emergency and your parents are going into the hospital and they're asking what are your medications, if you don't know it, the doctors can't react properly because they will be assuming certain things. Very rare that you have a parent that doesn't take any medication. So when you tell you, no, I don't take any, don't believe them. It happens, but it doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah.
So I just think it's really wonderful to open the conversation and get the discussions going and understanding things and try to overcome those family dynamics of, she was always the selfish one. She was always the favorite.
Absolutely. So what's the take home in all of this? Well, we would suggest that you get educated, okay? Because there's a lot that that most people are completely unaware of until they are actually in a situation where they're having to scramble, and so what we're trying to do is trying to help you get educated before things start falling apart. So you can seek out resources, and the Grand Family Planning website is a great place to do that. Professional help is available, and we at Grand Family Planning are a team of professionals who can help you with a number of different needs that your family members might have. And the beautiful thing about Grand Family Planning is that we help the entire family. We help everyone from the grandparents to the grandchildren, so that everybody on both ends of the spectrum get the care and attention that they deserve and that they need, and helps the children who are in the middle, the adult children, to be able to cope. So do know that denial is not a strategy, that waiting is a very poor strategy, even though it's human nature to do those things. Procrastination is something that we do extremely well. And health and time give you leverage, and they give you choices. When you're healthy and you have time on your side, then there are a lot of things that you can do. If you wait until people become sick and you run out of time, then the choices that you have are extremely limited. And by preparing, you will have control when things start becoming uncontrollable. So I want to thank you for those of you who are watching live, and those of you who may come back for the rebroadcast later. Want to thank you for attending. Kimberly, any other last thoughts as we?
Just to remind people, I've had too many clients who tell me, well, my mother's already 90, and I know this is going to sound horrible. Like, how much longer can she live? So we don't need to do anything. and it's like the ultimate of avoidance,
Right.
And ostrich thinking, because it doesn't matter how much longer she has to live, you've got to be protecting her and planning for her.
Right. And another thing that I find is that, adult children who are in that position of caretaking have a very nasty tendency to forget that they may be putting their children in the same position by not planning for their aging. That they need to have a long-term care strategy in place in the event that something happens to them. And let's face it, we're all living longer, and the likelihood that there's going to be some kind of long-term health event come up in their lives is extremely likely. So, we as people who are, in the baby boom, or we really need to get our own houses in order as far as that's concerned. We need to talk to people. We need to. My husband and I don't have children, but I have nieces, and I have a niece who will be my advocate in the event that something happens to me where my husband and I can't advocate for ourselves. We have a long-term care strategy in place. It's absolutely essential, because the structure that's in place currently in this country is not there to support us, and we really need to think about these things to make sure that we receive the care that we need and deserve as we age.
And by being properly planned with your documents, you get to choose who will be your advocate.
Yes.
So I applaud you for that.
Thanks so much, Kimberly. Well, we're now at let's see, it's 12:58 according to the time. Kimberly, thank you so much for joining me here today on the call. This will be available for replays, and this has been a really great experiment. This is our first ever Google Hangout, and it seems to be working. So we will be doing future sessions. We do have a session scheduled for next week, and it's about saving your own life in the new year. I will be sending out invitations for that one, and I welcome comments and suggestions for content going forward. Thank you so much, Kimberly. Thank you so much.
Here.
Okay, great. So, have a great day, everybody. And if you have any questions, you can contact me or Kimberly through the Grand Family Planning website. That's grandfamilyplanning.com. Everybody, have a great day.
Thanks. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye now.